Do you know the Muffin Man? Well, I do. And you know what the Muffin Man told me? That UCLA's resume actually stacks up with 9 Quad 1 wins?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, I'm choosing to accept it, and I think you should as well. UCLA has a resume that stacks up with some of the best in the country. So today, we're not talking negative. I cannot say anything bad about UCLA basketball in this show today. We are jumping on the hype train. Now, is this positivity essential? Are we pumping some sunshine in? Cool. It's raining in Southern California. So let's have some sunshine on this SoCal Wednesday day. All right. So UCLA, if you look at the latest net rankings, what makes the resume, what gives them hope for a team that can go deep in the tournament? And if you don't believe this team can go deep in the tournament, then you should just turn this episode off. I'm sorry, just turn it off. Because as much as they can do one thing, they can also go deep in the tournament. All right. This team has very many possibilities as to what can happen. Today, we're talking about the best case scenario, them going deep. All right. Which means I'm looking at the net rankings. Who has the most Quad 1 wins? Well, you look at Auburn. They're amongst the top of the list. They have 15. They're clear number 1. They have Janai Broom. A lot of things going their way for Auburn. 15-3 in Quad 1, 6-0 in Quad 2. They are as dominant as it gets. Despite their latest loss, they were pretty dominant in Auburn. Michigan State, 10-4 in Quad 1. All right, so the top 2 teams in the country have quite a lead, a little bit of a lead in the most Quad 1 victories. You know how many Quad 1 victories is in third place for the most in the country right now? Right now, as I record the podcast. This can change when you see it, when things change in the next couple of days, when you watch, when you listen. But right now, there are a total of 5 teams with 9 Quad 1 victories. And if you would have talked about this a few months ago, you might have thought of Oregon. None of them involve Oregon. You've got Kentucky. Okay, they're 20-10 and they're a bit beat up. Then you've got Alabama. Okay, makes sense that the SEC hype is real, blah, blah, blah. Tennessee, cool. All right. Michigan's got 9 Quad 1 victories. Cool. Oh, you know who also got 9 Quad 1 victories? UCLA. Because of them beating Northwestern, Oregon's currently in a top 30 spot. And as long as they continue to go with their winning ways after the Ducks' victory over the Indiana Hoosiers, UCLA's got 2 Quad 1 victories on the road against what could be a tournament team in Indiana, a scrappy Northwestern bunch that had 3 wins in a row heading into that game against UCLA. And all of a sudden, you're like, man, UCLA, 9 Quad 1 wins, 4 Quad 2 wins. And oh, by the way, they beat a top Big Ten team in Michigan State. They beat another top Big Ten team in Wisconsin. They held serve at home for the most part. And you're like, wait a minute. Why are we looking at this so like they're going to lose in the first round? This is a team that has one of the best, not so secret weapons that when they like to employ and when they get the right matchup, when the bigs down low are not big from their opposition or are not uber athletic and Cronin decides to put a Daimara out there, all of a sudden you've got a guy who can pass, who can score down low, who is turning into more of a defensive threat as well as a rebounding machine. Because he can play 15 minutes and he can get a double-double. And there's not many people in the country, many teams in the country that have many options that can stop a Daimara. All right. And I don't think that all these teams are going to be able to compete with him for 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. When Mata plays 20 minutes, UCLA 6-0. And they beat Wisconsin. A matchup where you're like, dude, how did UCLA score 85 points? Well, because Mata dominated. UCLA matched up against a smaller but scrappy Michigan State team who couldn't shoot the basketball but rebounds well. One thing we know UCLA has struggled with this year, but they've turned themselves into an offensive rebounding machine. Even in a loss against Purdue, the Bruins hit the glass hard. When UCLA found ways to do it against Northwestern, they hit the glass hard. They know how to win even when the other team's strength is imposed upon them. All right. UCLA earlier in the season struggled with some size. Well, now they've combated that with a bit more William Kyle minutes, a lot more Diamata. Oh, can UCLA go small? Certainly. They can go with the Eric Daly Jr., Tyler Bello lineup, which, by the way, has still netted them some significant wins. Oh, how about a win at Oregon? How about some big leads against some good teams currently slotted in the tournament? They know how to go small. They can go medium. UCLA's proven they know how to shuffle the lineup between Daly Jr. and Mata, Bellido and Mata. Those three guys have not necessarily been on the court at the same time. They have used the William Kyle and a Diamata lineup at the same time. But UCLA, if you go from year to year, what did Mick Cronin want to get? More scoring, more shooting, and just a lot more defensive toughness. Well, they've got some size in the paint. All right. Adembona was an athletic freak because of his ability to block shots, play recovery defense. So UCLA had to find somebody or players who could somewhat make up for that. Well, the Bruins got the Jalen Clark, revival in Kobe Johnson, who's great at ripping the ball away. They've got multiple point guard options between Dylan Andrews, Sky Clark, Trent Perry out the bench, Sebastian Mack. UCLA's got quite a few. They've got an arsenal there. They've all got very different talents. And they can all come in at the right time. And, oh, by the way, if Kobe Johnson's in foul trouble, let's bring in a shooting guard who played almost the most amount of minutes. Last year, I believe he did, in Lazar Stefanovic, close to it, who has pretty solid shooting numbers this year and is a baseline out-of-bounds scoring machine. Comes off a curl. The Bruins, if they're down one with 5 seconds left, they're going to get Lazar Stefanovic off a curl, and he's going to hit a game-winning jumper in the tournament. In a Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament, that is what I'm thinking. You're telling me a team that could go compete on the road with some of these bigger, better Big Ten teams, host some of the bigger, better Big Ten teams, and compete for large portions of those games? I'm believing. Now, if you've reached this point in the podcast and you're like, Zach, I just want to hate, and I'm not going to believe, and I'm texting. You obviously didn't accept the mission or watch the first 5 seconds of the podcast, all right? We know UCLA has their shortcomings, but the reasons for victory are Mick Cronin's demanded defensive intensity. UCLA forces the most amount of turnovers per game. They average 8 steals per game. So there's the forced turnovers. There's the altered shots if they use their defensive playmakers in the paint. Mixture between Kobe Johnson, Adai, the dominant athletic big man down low, and William Kyle when he came over from South Dakota State. UCLA's got 3 different options that can rip the ball from you. You've seen Sky Clark make plays defensively. Sebastian Mack can gamble successfully on defense. UCLA has a defensive prowess that can be elite and at times is elite. The shooting in big wins has proven to be there on more than one occasion. It's not like it's an outlier. It's happened before. And they know how to go with the mid-range game. These are guys that can make contested jumpers. They've got and learned how to go a little more fast break in certain moments of the game. And they have learned to circumnavigate their lack of interior presence rebounding with an added presence of their guards rebounding the basketball. They've got 20 wins to boot. They're 21-9 right now. They are a top 25, top 26 team in the net. And right now they're tied for third with the third most quad one victories in the country. If that doesn't say a team that has some absolute potential to go on a run, not just through the first round into the second round, but push third weekend, go play in a football stadium, go play basketball in a football stadium. We talk about March Madness. Let's go play some basketball in a football stadium. That's the goal for UCLA in their third weekend this year in March, heading into April. And this team absolutely has it. They have it. Now, we all fell in love with the Jules Bernards, the Johnny Juzangs. Well, how do you become superstars and March legends? Well, you go on a run in March. And you go and upset some big teams, you steal a victory, which UCLA has the recipe to do with a late game comeback. That's how UCLA went first 4 to Final Four. They stole one against Michigan State and ran it all the way to the Final Four while escaping some late game drama. The Bruins have played a lot of close games. They have won quite a few of them. Despite the negativity of a couple of those, UCLA has won in close games. They've beaten good teams. And now they are battle tested. And hopefully, with the right draw, they can either get the right path or just the rest from travel. Maybe both of those can align their way. This is a team that is certainly begging you to put them and mark them deep in your tournament run, okay? That is my positivity sunshine for the day. All right, you're sitting there in the rain. You're like, it's been beautiful warm weather in Southern California. It's gloomy, it's rainy, it's early March. We're getting mad. Well, don't get mad at me. I gave you your dose of sunshine today. UCLA has a chance. They have the resume to boot. They've got the wins. They've proven that they can compete. How can they do it? Go make a run. Go beat USC, which they should at home. Will be a competitive game. Don't get me wrong. And while the quad one victories will shift either up or down based on the team's net rankings over the next couple of weeks, UCLA certainly has an amount of wins that stacks up with the rest of the country, despite what the other people tell you, right? The other talking heads, the other optics, the fact that the SEC is the greatest basketball conference ever seen, whatever they're going to tell you. No. UCLA has traveled. They played the best. They've beaten some of the best when they were hot, when they were coming on the road. UCLA knows what they're doing. Mick Cronin, what does John Rothstein always say? More consistent than a few good men on a rainy day. What's today? It's a rainy day. What we talk about next, though, a spring day in a month, in April, when UCLA, Deshaun Foster, is trying to grow their program into a successful one in 2025. What am I looking for? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order products online. They've got an easy-to-use website packed with helpful resources, the latest product info to help you get the job done right, plus a complete inventory of over 200,000 plus parts with over 400 plus top brands. That's a lot of stuff where you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, SupplyHouse offers the expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always be talking with a real person. Look for the trade pros for those extra edges if you're looking for those, and free Trade Master program offers an exclusive perk like dedicated phone line or free shipping, discounts in every order, all that, and you can go plug in with thousands of skilled professionals that are already taking this advantage. It's now time for you. Join Trade Master program today, all right, at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We're talking spring ball. We haven't talked a lot of UCLA football lately. I promised it, so let's get to it, all right? The women have another day off until we're waiting for their Big Ten tournament hopes to start. The UCLA men, we're waiting for them to go battle USC and then go back to the state of Indiana for the third time in the last little over a month. Craziness. So now we're talking UCLA football, all right? We are looking focused. The sunshine pumping, that was segment one. Not exactly to go negative or talking trash, but right now, let's kind of take a look at what this UCLA program is bringing in. Right now, the Bruins are banking on the fact that the NCAA has given the extra eligibility to some of these JUCO players, Caden Robinson, Joey Aguilar. UCLA did their best to hit the portal hard in 2025. Right now, they have 19 players coming in with a letter of intent, or I guess, right? It's not the NLI anymore, but they've signed an agreement to come to UCLA and play football. The Bruins, close to a top 30 transfer class, all right? Pretty respectable with what the Bruins wanted to go after. Close to 19 to 20 guys, some shifting allegiances, alliances, commits, however you want to talk about it, whether it be with NIL opportunities, coaching switches. UCLA brought in a haul, including at some skill positions, trying to beef up on the O-line and overall become a lot more competitive in 2025. It's not that they weren't, but in year one to year two for Deshaun Foster, they want to take that next level. All right. Everybody's getting rid of the spring game. UCLA, well, they're having a spring showcase and a Friday night spring showcase. Well, spring practice starts in a month. There's another spring transfer portal window. Maybe that affects things. I don't think it'll dramatically alter UCLA's hopes, but you never know. Here's what UCLA has that I am looking for in this first couple of practices. One, what does the Tino Sinceri offense look like when you got Caden Robinson running around, you got Joey Aguilar running around from App State? I think maybe it was Spencer McLaughlin a couple weeks ago, who always likes to talk trash on those Locked On Big Ten squads. I'll be back on that one. So if you're looking for Locked On Big Ten squad, I'm there. My Tuesdays, when we're recording, I'm a little bit more free, so go watch the Locked On Big Ten Squad. I am back, and I'm trying to do that for the next month and get ready to rock and roll here with March Madness. So what we're looking for is a UCLA team with a super old quarterback. Dare I say, super old quarterback, right? You got the mixture of the COVIDs, the JUCO ruling for the Diego Pavia ruling. Joey Aguilar is the latest to come to UCLA with basically a one-year deal of sorts to play quarterback. The Bruins were moving on from Ethan Garbers. He graduated. He ran out of eligibility. And they have like 30 quarterbacks on their roster, incoming, transferring in a previous year, or all of a sudden we're like, who's going to play quarterback? Aguilar is the clear-cut QB1 heading into spring. And I'd like to see what this new offensive genius, this new wave, this new young QB whisperer, this QB guru in Tino Sinceri is to bring after the Eric Bieniemy offense. 2 subpar years offensively, right? They were all right with Chip Kelly in their last year with him in 2023 with a great defense and with a pretty solid defense. Not a great defense, but a pretty solid defense with what they had in 2024. They had an even worse offense with what was supposed to be one of the most gifted offensive minds in all of football. It did not end up being the case, and we've kind of seen where Eric Bieniemy's headed after that. Whether you believe his comments about him doing Deshaun Foster a favor, considering Deshaun was hired late in the year in 2024, the Bruins have had a full offseason to address some needs, and what Deshaun said right after the season, we're going to find that transfer quarterback. They got it. So I want to see how good he looks right away. Does he look like that guy that can lead the locker room and be a leader and set a program standard in a year, in a spring, and grow? And of course, he's trying to grow and become a pro player, whether it be in this combined UFL, go play in Canada, go become an NFL prospect, whatever that means for him in Joey Aguilar's post-playing career or post-collegiate playing career. But can he be that leader that we knew Ethan Garbers was, right? Ethan Garbers was a leader. As much as you could talk trash about whether he'd make a mistake, was playing in an ultra-complex offense last year with a pretty rough offensive line in 24 and similar in 2023 of protecting the quarterback. Can Aguilar be that guy? He has to be the guy to lead because he is clearly the number one quarterback on this roster. Not to say that things can't change throughout the course of the 2025 season, but with the amount of experience, another offense these youngsters need to learn, I'm going to go out of the gates and say Aguilar is way head and shoulders above. That's the easiest statement to say. But how does the development of the other QBs come in after him? All right. I want to hope Aguilar impresses in the first couple of weeks of camp. And then next thing you know, during the spring game, instead of what it was in 2024, UCLA with Garbers throwing a first pass that was picked off but dropped, right? Garbers' first pass of the spring game was literally dropped or it was dropped for an interception. That kind of told the story of the 2024 football season. Oh, close to one person making a play, offense a little sluggish, defense just close to making a play, and they fell just shy of bowl eligibility. Now any team in the expanded 12-team playoff era, right? You had Arizona State and picked to finish dead last or close to it in the Big 12. You had the unexpected rise of Indiana with Curt Cignetti out of nowhere. So all these teams out of nowhere trying in the super conference era, might try and steal a third or fourth bid to an NCAA playoff potential, right? The CFP. Can UCLA be that? That would be a long stretch at this point. That would be a long stretch for me to even go. Even with the sunshine pumping, that's a little too far for me. But I believe they can make a bowl game. They can go on a run and make some things happen. But also what I want to see in this spring is what do the other quarterbacks possess to take the reins over in 2026? Or does UCLA have to go after another currently uncommitted top signal caller in the 26 class? Talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. Okay, so Joey Aguilar has his Appalachian State running mate, App State, with Caden Robinson. So those two, they should be putting up some big offensive numbers. UCLA has quite a few weapons returning from the 24 team, bring in a couple of guys for 25. It should be a newly revamped, more fun offense to watch in 2025 than it was in 24, and dare I say, in 2023. Now, what I'm looking forward to is what does UCLA look like in 2026, right? The Madden Imeleava situation didn't work out. He ended up ditching UCLA, so did Chase Brown. UCLA lost their offensive coordinator, changed things. And if Tino Sunseri is as great as he is built up to be, how long is he going to stay as the offensive coordinator at UCLA? 1, 2 years max? Is he going to push for a head coaching job? Is he pushing for the next Danton Lynn opportunity where he comes, balls out at UCLA, and then next thing you know, jumps ship to go elsewhere for a bigger dollar, more exposure? So how does that help the quarterbacks? Well, if this offense is a lot less complex than the West Coast scheme employed by Eric Bieniemy, hopefully there can be some strides made by some incoming freshmen. These are the kids that were signed right away in 2025. You have Colton Gamino, you've got Robert McDaniel. Those are guys signed heading into this class of 2025 for UCLA, as Robert McDaniel was a late flip brought in by Tino Sunseri. Gamino was the one guy in the quarterback room that did not flip heading into the early signing day. Remember UCLA in the depth chart? It is Demarcus Davis, all right? He's a guy that transferred into UCLA prior to last season. Let's also remember the name that you've got: Luke Duncan, Henry Hasselbeck. Oh, Carson Gordon, a guy that's a dual threat athlete. Do you start to see UCLA employ some of these quarterbacks into more hybrid athlete roles and push them into new positions in spring? Or can one of those guys, 5 to 6, I think I just mentioned, incoming freshmen, transfers, players who have already been in the program, finally take that next step? And there's so many. Some of them have the billing of 6'5", 6'6". Some have the elite speed that do the track and field. Some are maybe a hand-picked option from the incoming offensive coordinator, but they're not going to surpass the likes of Joey Aguilar in spring practice or even fall camp at any point during the 2025 season. But one of these guys needs to step up. Now, in the portal day and age, it's easy to say, yeah, you can go shopping. But UCLA isn't that school that's going to be able to compete every single year in the portal with winning over a battle with these guys in NIL opportunities, all right? A public UC school is not going to go win out against an SEC school or Michigan shelling out millions of dollars. Dare I say USC? Dare I say Ohio State when they want to put together a $20 million roster? Any of these other schools, they're going to shell out big bucks. So that means UCLA, at best in their own conference, might be 8th in line for a transfer portal quarterback. Now, I'm pretty happy with what they got with Joey Aguilar, but can one of these youngsters step up and become a guy that starts for 1 to 2 years? In a rare case, do these quarterbacks stay for 3 years or are playing, or with UCLA's case, maybe you redshirt, you get a couple of games in and mop-up duty, and they're ready for 2026? I'm not sure. Can any one of these guys step up? I think it's really, in my mind, too early to pinpoint any one of these youngsters who are all around the program, that have been around the program or are incoming to the program, that it's like, hey, those are too many names to pick out. Like, what was UCLA doing from the Chip Kelly to the Deshaun Foster to this day and age going after quarterbacks? They didn't really have a plan. They were just kind of stuck, and all of a sudden they had Dante Moore, and he's the starting quarterback for the Oregon Ducks. You're like, okay, Dante, if you're heading into December 2023, and you're like, all right, in 2025, Dante's third year of college, you're like, okay, he'd be the starting quarterback of the Ducks. Never would you have thought that UCLA competed for a late NIL push to bring Dante to UCLA, that he started, transferred / redshirted a year at Oregon, didn't play, he was okay with that, and now he's heading in to be the starting quarterback in his second year of college football playing-wise, third year in college overall. So this whole QB plan could have been the last year of Dante Moore, and they would still be in this, all right, who's going to start in 2026? It's looked very different over the last few years, but the question still remains, who could they go after? Well, Brady Smeagol, who was a one-time commit to Florida State, he's taken official visits to Michigan, who could throw out big money. You got South Carolina, who could be in on him. UCLA, this is a kid in their own backyard, and I haven't seen anything that's proven that he's committing anywhere. It doesn't look like he's going to rush his commitment. From what I've seen, can Brady Smeagol be one of those guys? And hey, it's so early that even if he commits, when you watch this video, kids have committed, decommitted like 2 or 3 times before they end up at their final spot. They don't like the NIL deal. A coach gets fired. Things change. Expansion, TV, everything could change. So even if they commit, Brady Smeagol, whether he commits or not out of Newberry Park, that's still a guy UCLA can make a run at late in this 2026 class. Now, does UCLA have the firepower with the potential offer? Do they have the glitz and the glamour of the fan base, the fervor around the SEC or the top schools of the Big Ten? Or can they say, you're a local kid, we can promise you that you will automatically compete for the starting job immediately, whether you're ready or not? We have a bunch of guys that haven't competed over the last couple of years, to an Ethan Garbers, to what's going to be Joey Aguilar this year. So that is a guy who has already been mentioned, is clearly on UCLA's radar, like many other schools already have him on their radar, that UCLA can kind of be like, hey, tell these youngsters, there's a high school quarterback that if you don't pan out, we can try and go after, or the portal. I just hope in spring ball that one of these youngsters, it doesn't really matter who, can become a big-time player, or somebody who's a quality backup / somebody being molded into the starter into 2026. And I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of these guys have position switches and help with UCLA on a different side of the ball. Maybe it's defense. Maybe they switch to the receiver room. There's been a lot of coaching switches that Deshaun Foster might be like, hey, this kid's an athlete. Is he a quarterback, though? That's been something we've seen over the last couple of years. Maybe not in the Deshaun Foster reign of a year plus, but it could happen. And I'd say that's likely that with this many quarterbacks, somebody's going to position switch. Somebody's possibly going to transfer out in the next window. And I think we'll find a quality backup by the time the spring ball has gotten underway. Those are the three things I'm looking for. Who's leaving? Who's changing positions? And who takes that spot? Right now, you'd be the number 2 role and just being that QB in waiting, hopefully, for 2026, with still a decent option in the next year or two if UCLA plays a late run at Brady Smeagol, regardless of where he decides to commit or not commit between now and the 2026 signing day. Which is why it'll be fun to see what spring ball looks like, hopefully riding off a big, long UCLA men's and women's deep NCAA tournament run into early April. But until then, we're going to get our hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.